Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, welcome to the Thursday edition of Sidelines, the college football and basketball blitz. Rob Browne, your host, going to have a great lineup today. Next couple of hours, we'll be covering a lot of ground, Southern college football, basketball, talk a little baseball, recruiting, you name it, we're going to get into it. Jake Wimberly joins us, 105.9 The Drive, afternoons 3 to 6 p.m. down in Jackson, Mississippi. Sports talk down all over the great Magnolia State. We'll be joined in the second segment. Gary Harris, Tide 100.9, WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa, checking in on Alabama. That was a big win last night for the Tide on the road at Arkansas. Hogs now 1-3. Alabama looks to be a really strong team. I think they're getting better every night out on the court. Top of hour number 2, the AD angle. Matt Dean over in Memphis and John Hartwell check in with us. We'll be talking about what's going on in college athletics. There was some big news last night that came out about the NCAA. I'm telling you, folks, the free market will correct this mess. You're not going to allow people. It can't continue where people, their steak wasn't cooked right, their pillow's not soft enough. The wind blew in their face and they got their feelings hurt, so they transfer. And it's not going to work. And the colleges and the coaches are making that very clear. NCAA is not known for being a strong group of leaders. Mark Emmert was awful. We got a new guy in there, former governor of Massachusetts. We'll see what happens, but the free market will correct it. And you watch. Take my word on this one. The NIL, there's only so many dumb people out there that will throw money away at 17 and 18-year-old kids who haven't done anything, because make no bones about it. It is pay for play. Now it's legal. That's all it is. So we'll talk about a lot in the next 2 hours, but let's get right to it. We're here Monday through Saturday, 2 hours every day, www.sidelines.live. Also, if you miss us live, go to the website with about an hour after, we're here. Also, 680thefan.com, the podcast park over in Atlanta, Kicks 96.3 over in Alexander City, Lake Martin, beautiful Radio Alabama group, and more announcements coming as well. Follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. Let's go right to it with Jake Wimberly. And Jake, had fun being on your show last week talking SEC football. That's like, hey kids, y'all want to go to Disney World or Six Flags? I love doing it year round. Right now, we just finished the college football championship Monday night, but there's a lot going on. We've got the Super Bowl, we got pro football, but for college, Senior Bowl first Saturday in February. We've got the second recruiting period in Wednesday, the first Wednesday in February, for whatever that means. But you talk sports in Mississippi Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. A lot going on down there. And most of all, the loss of Mike Leach, his death leaves a big hole. Mississippi State finished the season 9-4, winning their bowl game. Ole Miss finished 8-5, losing 5 of their last 6. Bottom line, there was a lot of momentum for Ole Miss. They lost it late. Mississippi State's got a lot, but there are questions about, Zach Arnett. Who's he going to name? We got an offensive coordinator in place yet, do you think? I mean, what's the future for Mississippi State with Zach Arnett? He's a great defensive coach. How much change? Let's talk about it.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And if you can't hear me, okay, let me know. And I appreciate you having me on, Rob. But, when you look at Zach Arnett and what he's done, he's going to kind of do this thing his way. You look at some of the defensive changes he's already made, some of the coaches that are already gone. Steve Spurrier Jr. no longer with his staff. Just brought in David Turner, who has a lot of experience inside the SEC. He's got experience inside the walls of Starkville, shall we say. Brad Peterson comes back. So bringing back some familiar faces that are familiar with that program, familiar with recruiting the state, not only the state of Mississippi, but the southeastern footprint offensively. I think that, and you and I talked about this off the air and then on my show, is This is not going to be the same air raid that we've seen under, Mike Leach when he obviously was coaching running the sidelines there in Starkville. This is going to be a little different. You're hearing some names like the offensive coordinator at Duke and some other guys as well. Offensive coordinator at Tulane. Mississippi State expected to hire an AD, make that official today or tomorrow as they go for going after that. Looks like the associate athletics director at Oklahoma. But when you look at offensive coordinator, that should be done, I would think, by the end of the week or first of next week. So I would expect this defense to continue to play well under Zach Arnett. He promoted from within, to name basically a defensive coordinator, because he even said it during the bowl time and bowl prep. He said, hey, this is just way more than I can handle. I think he figured that out pretty quickly to run a team and then also call defensive plays as well and scheme. So he promotes from within on his defensive side. Offensively, this is going to have some air raid concepts, but I would think that this thing is going to look much different, probably more geared towards, a little bit stronger running game, using the tight ends. Like I've told people, think Josh Heupel, what he's doing at Tennessee, and Mike Leach disciple, Sonny Dykes at TCU, Lincoln Riley at USC. So I think this thing will look a little bit differently, but Zach Arnett's kind of teed up here. A lot of guys coming back on defense. A 3-year starter coming back on offense at quarterback. And then for the first time ever, they're going to play 8 home games in Starkville in 2023.
Well, it is a lot changing. And Zach Arnett's right. You talk to any college football head coach, and typically they come from after being an offensive or defensive coordinator, and they'll tell you, wow, I didn't really get to coach a lot. I realized that quickly. So you better have great people around you, because now you've got 10 people on a staff. And if you don't, we know Zach Arnett is a great defensive coach, but the coordinator he brings in, I'm sure he'll have a lot of input into the game plan preparation during the week. But Zach Arnett's good. And I think the concern when Mike Leach came was, how are you going to run the air raid offense in the SEC if you can't run the ball? And the first year they averaged about 45, then 65, 66 yards a game. That's not much at all. But by air raid standards, it was going up every year. If you can run the ball in the SEC day in and day out in practice, you tend to toughen up your offensive and defensive lines. Mississippi State always, as far as I can remember, and I've been to a lot of games at Scott Field, Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville. They always have just big athletic linemen. It's amazing how many of them are homegrown out of Mississippi. What is offensively? You haven't named the coordinator yet, but how drastic of a change you think it'll be? Like a 180, or just maybe a little bit from the air raid?
I think, not a 180. I think you're just going to see some modifications here. Probably some of the same concepts. You're still going to throw the ball. You're still going to run 4 wide. You're still going to run a 1x3 set, 2x2 stacks, do all the nifty stuff. I just think you're going to see a little bit different deal. If you're running, let's just say 80-20 under Mike Leach pass to run ratio, I think you probably move this thing back more around 60-40, 75-25. You'll see a lot of the same stuff, I would assume, regardless who the coordinator is, but I think you'll see some variations. You'll see some, again, tight ends kind of moved into the set. Mississippi State already shopping around for some of those guys. Got a couple in off this last recruiting cycle. So I don't think it's going to be a drastic change, but I think it'll be enough where you'll be able to tell the difference. It's almost like you got a Jeep and it's the same Jeep, but you went from smaller tires to bigger tires. You'll be able to tell the difference in the tires. Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears, go to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, and whatever was going on between Lane Kiffin and Auburn, and only he and Auburn people know, and I know a little about it, but that flirtation, it seemed like Ole Miss their schedule was front end was easy. The back end was loaded with all the tough games, but the way they finished the season losing 5 of the last 6, Lane Kiffin in the bowl game, the team just was not the same, but they've got the majority of their players and their production coming back next year, barring some unforeseen guys going into the portal. Give me a health check on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being bedridden, 20 years in bed like Charlie's grandparents and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, hadn't been out of bed in 20 years, or 5, They're running, 5 miles every morning and swimming. They're doing great. How healthy is Ole Miss football right now at this moment with Lane Kiffin? The way he's recruiting the state of Mississippi, which he does, but he's more of a national guy, more of a portal guy.
Look, I think the health of the program is pretty darn healthy. I mean, look, if you'd have told Ole Miss fans, I think coming into this past year, hey, we just played for a Sugar Bowl. We won 10 games. Yeah. We're losing our quarterback to the NFL and Matt Corral. What if we gave you 8 games? What if you win 8 games, you go to a bowl game? I think most people would have took it. I think the disappointment comes with the way, like you said, the back end of that schedule, kind of unfolded. And, we were looking at this thing and analytically at the beginning of the year on, it's a shameless plug here, CFBhourglass.com, where we do all of our analytics, said, hey, look, this looks like a really good front end schedule. I said it all spring long, never apologize for your scheduling. Yeah. Sometimes the scheduling guides help you out, but the back end just looked really, really tough. Yeah. And it proved to be that. And you saw some struggles from Jackson Dart. They lost Michael Trigg. He never really panned out to injury, and that, so they lost their tight end there. There was some deficiencies there in this team. But I still think the health of the program is really good. We'll see if Jackson Dart's the guy moving forward, because, there is, rumors that Lane Kiffin's shopping around in the transfer portal for a quarterback. Maybe Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma comes down for a visit. Lane Kiffin has done a really good job recruiting the state of Mississippi, but I like the overall health of the program. Yeah, and the state of Mississippi the last few years has been loaded with high school talent. You got a state with about 2.8 million people, and per capita, more guys in the NFL from Mississippi than any state in America. It's incredible. So I want to ask you now about at Jackson State. Deion Sanders was there for the last 3 years, brought a lot of attention to the program. Financially, how much money did they bring in terms of NIL? As an example, in the 3 weeks, Yancey Porter, a frequent guest and friend of our show, Rebel Yell Hotline, said, in that 3 weeks, then Kiffin and Auburn were flirting with each other. Ole Miss gained 5,100 new members to their NIL collective, and just under $11 million was raised. Did Deion Sanders and Jackson State do anything close to that? That's an interesting question, Rob, that I don't know that we're ever going to get the answer to. We've got people that work inside this building that I'm currently in here at Alpha Media that work inside also that program over there at Jackson State. And that number was never really divulged. Deion Sanders even said as much that he didn't believe in it, NIL. They weren't doing anything with NIL, but I think we all know that they probably were. I mean, the tie there with Barstool that Deion has with Dave Portnoy, not mad even about that. I wish I had one of those deals cut. But, you look at the way the talent that came in at Jackson State and, from Travis Hunter and to several other guys, something was there, but we just don't know. One of the things about Deion Sanders that was really interesting, did a wonderful job here, obviously, did a great job for the city of Jackson as far as, boosting economy, facility upgrades at Jackson State. But he really was locked away from the local media outside of Rob J., who works here at Alpha Media and then also works for a local television station, WLBT. Rob was the only one that had access. Nobody had access. She didn't have access to the program, didn't have access to the players. He really kept that thing buttoned up. So that's a number that I would love to know as well. Yeah, because as far as the NIL goes, my 32nd year, in addition to doing this show and wealth management, I've never ever had a family give out money to 18, 19-year-old children. It's always age-banded, incentive-based trust that they do. I've come up with an idea about if you want to do something positive with NIL, because these players, they don't need $100,000 a year in college. And I'm tired of this old washed-up narrative. They don't have enough money to go out and get a pizza. Yeah, they do. I know what they get in cost attendance, and you do too. So flush that one down the commode. What about you take this NIL money that you're bringing in and set up a pension at your respective university, and you've got to hit certain benchmarks. You've got to graduate. You've got a letter. You've got to be doing certain things that are part of a contract that everybody in the real world has to do. I think if you did that, it would incentivize people. And also, if you transfer out, it's like if you've got to be vested for 25 years in the state of Alabama or Mississippi retirement system to collect a pension, and you leave 23, 24 years in, you don't get it. You put some teeth in there like that with NIL,
I think it can make it. Otherwise, I see it in my career. It's going to collapse on its own weight, and it's just going to eat itself alive. Would you agree?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. I totally agree with you. I mean, this thing is absolutely 100%. This thing is going to be totally different 5 years from now versus what it is today. It's going to be different, definitely 10 years from now. The market will reset itself. This is the shiny new toy right now. The news got to wear off this thing, but I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah. And what we want to do, I want to do this. We're going to take a break in just a minute. I want to come back. I got a few more questions about the bigger SEC picture, but see that's where we're going. You've got some schools are very secretive. These are state universities and they don't want anybody to know. And I'm getting a lot of text on my phone from people right now saying, better chance of getting accurate numbers from, the federal government on something. And I think, and I've asked this question, did you give more money to your respective, whatever school it is, NIL collective, than you did in terms of spending money on Christmas gifts for your family members? Or are you giving more to your NIL collective than you do to your favorite charities? That's an issue. And I just think that when you look at Texas A&M, that's the greatest example of it. That $25 million figure we heard out there. What I have been told is that was over a 5-year period. And I think these Texas A&M guys got to campus and were expecting to get all their money up front before they had done anything. That's why you have 25 or 30 guys at A&M already in the portal. But we're going to get into more with Texas A&M right after this. We've got Jake Wimberly, 105.9, The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. with us right after this.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, Jake Wimberly, Texas A&M, what a marriage. Jimbo Fisher is going to give up play calling duties and let one of the nicest guys, most lovable guys out there, Bobby Petrino, come in and call the plays. Let's put 2 male dogs in the same room with a female in heat and see what happens. I don't know how it's going to work. The other problem is, remember the old TV show Dallas? Think about J.R. Ewing. You've got a room full of J.R. Ewings in there, all of them trying to bench press their wallets in public each other, and you get nothing done. In this millennium, Texas A&M, with all the money, the resources, everything they have one double-digit win season. That was the 11-2 season in 2012 with Johnny Football when they caught lightning in a bottle. Do you see anything changing?
I don't. I really don't. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, at least in my estimation, is a very average football coach. He's done some nice things in his career. He does have a national championship. He can probably thank Jameis Winston for that. And, that talented Florida State team almost 10 years ago, 2013. But look, he is no different than, I've said this for the last year and a half. They fired or run out Kevin Sumlin to give a raise to rehire Kevin Sumlin or less. Yeah. And what he has done with that program has been just awful, honestly. I mean, and you're right. I mean, the NIL deals that were promised, there's, again, a lot of confusion on how these things are paid out to, at least, especially to the players, probably some confusion there. But that whole thing is in disarray. And I agree with you. Bringing in another alpha male like Bobby Petrino, I just don't know how this is going to work. And at some point, the money's not going to matter. I mean, there's a couple guys, and this too, Rob, down there, that if they get fed up and tired of this, they can make one phone call and this thing can be done. The money at some point is going to become obsolete. It's not going to matter. He is going to have to show marked improvement in 2023. And I'm talking about marked improvement, 8 wins, 9 wins. I don't know that 7-5 saves his job. But basically what he has done is turned to Bobby Petrino to save not only his offense, but to save his job. And I don't know that that's going to happen.
No, I don't either. And I saw that same thing at Auburn. Gus Malzahn, I'm going to give up control, bringing in an offensive coordinator to call plays, and we're going to get butter. Gus couldn't say better. It was butter, Butter. And year after year after year, you just can't do it. He's 57 years old. He's wired like that. You know, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. If Jimbo was like this, he'd have done it a long time ago. And I think too, I don't think they have I think the culture of that team, as evidenced by some of the actions of players, 3 of them kicked off the team in the locker room right before kickoff in that road game at South Carolina this year. You know, you can talk about money all you want. And I live in Memphis. Our show is on all over. But I will say this, the state of Mississippi, in the last 10 years, if you look at the budgets, go back 15, 20 years ago, $45 million would be the budget for athletics at Ole Miss. They get more than that now just from the check from the SEC office. And Mississippi State has money. Mississippi State has dominated A&M 2 years in a row. A&M has all that 7 or 8 5-stars in one class. But, you know, if you're not developing the talent and you've got a poor culture, it's like going to the best grocery store in Jackson or Memphis or Birmingham, the fresh market, and spending $1,000 on halibut, aged Angus, and free-range chicken. But if you leave it in the trunk in July, it ain't going to take long for it to go bad. And you got a bunch of talented players with their hands out expecting to be paid. They're just a bunch of hired guns. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? And you're not going to win with freshmen anyway. I now want to switch gears about the other part of the conference. You look around the SEC, the West versus the East this year, which was the strongest of the two, top to bottom?
Wow, top to bottom, boy, that's a great question. Let's kind of dissect that. I mean, Vanderbilt showed marked improvement, especially at the end of the year. Missouri was a little better than we thought. I mean, Florida was about who we thought. Tennessee was much improved, obviously, and I think a lot of people expected that, didn't know where they was going to fall. Georgia's your national champion. South Carolina, again, looked much improved. So, you got to give kudos to the SEC East. SEC West, I mean, Auburn, kind of what we thought they would be. We didn't feel like that, Brian Harsin was going to make it out of there. Arkansas, not a bad team. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, about kind of who we thought. I mean, it kind of went outside of LSU, went in the SEC West, which I think that came out of nowhere. I don't think everybody I sure didn't expect Brian Kelly to have the kind of year that he had that good. I mean, I felt like it would be improved. I would have to probably, I don't want to call it a draw. Let's just give a slight edge because of Vanderbilt, and they got a couple conference wins. We'll give it to the East just by a little bit.
That's a surprise. I mean, and Georgia right now, Tennessee preseason, I thought they could win 10 games, but I sure didn't see them losing 63-38 at South Carolina late in the season. But Josh Heupel in Tennessee, hell of a coach. But the Kentucky Wildcats are a program that they're just Kentucky. You just accept that fact. I mean, you can get as excited as you want. Will Levis, he eats bananas with the skin on them. He puts mayonnaise in his coffee, which is gross. But look, they've been going backwards. Is it? And I like Mark Stoops as a coach, but he's been there 10 years now. It seems like they're going backwards.
Probably just a little bit. I mean, well, here's the deal. Are they going backwards, or are they the same? And are the expectations, I think the expectations have gotten higher for Kentucky football.
Oh, they have.
By just a little bit. And, the thing about Mark Stoops, and we see this even with Will Levis there and Rodriguez, the talented running back, both off to the NFL now. New offensive coordinator coming in for the Los Angeles Rams of Kentucky. Also, it's going to be interesting to see what Devin Leary does, the transfer quarterback from NC State. So I think Mark Stoops knows he's going to have to improve that offense. They did go a little bit backwards this year, but I mean, Mark Stoops at Kentucky is what he is. He's going to be a 6-win, 7-win, 8-win type coach. And it seems like annually. And again, I think if you went back 15 years ago and asked Kentucky fans, hey, look, you're going to have a great basketball program, but we're going to give you an 8-win, 7-8-win football team. annually. And guess what? You're going to not only compete, you're going to beat Florida a couple times. I think that they would take that, but I see where you're going here. That does look like a slight regression. I think that's why you probably see the change in offensive coordinator. And then, of course, they had to go grab a quarterback in the transfer portal, and they did do that.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I've always said this about Kentucky football, just like it is for Auburn basketball. As an example, if Auburn people get as mad after a basketball game loss as they do after football, basketball will be strong. Same thing at Kentucky. And then you had the comments made about, Kentucky with Mark Stoops and John Calipari, that Kentucky's a football school. That was pretty funny, but that's a healthy debate. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm sure those guys are friends. I mean, I don't know why. You can say if it's good for Kentucky, it's good for every coach there. Another thing I really want to get into with you is, again, high school football in Mississippi. You cover high school football. You're a play-by-play guy over at Brandon. Again, that state, if you look at the Clarion Ledger's top 40 historically, the problem is the way that the grading system in Mississippi. What is a D? What is an F? You got 17 junior colleges in the state of Mississippi. We know about them, East Mississippi Community College, Jones, Northwest. There are a lot of them, Gulf Coast Community College. How big of an impact, negative, in my opinion, it's a negative, is the portal? And what are you hearing from junior college coaches that they're trying to do to get their players out in front of the recruiters? Because there's a ton of talent that's available.
Hey, look, it's not just the junior colleges. It's Rob. It's the high schools too.
Yeah.
When you talk to a lot of the high school coaches, the one thing they say is the portal has hurt, and it's not just Mississippi. I think this is all over the place. You take a guy who is a, quote unquote, and depending on the service you go by, 247, or if you go to On3, or you go to Rivals, or wherever you go, ESPN, you get a fringe 3-star player out of the state of Mississippi that typically would have been a guy that would maybe been taken in the back end of a class at State or Ole Miss. The last few guys maybe given a gray shirt. Those guys aren't getting those chances. And I'll give you a great example of that. At Brandon High School, a young man by the name of Lester Miller. He was one of the top wide receivers in the state, only behind Aiden Williams, who signed with Ole Miss in the first signing period here this past cycle. Mm-hmm. He was a Mississippi Alabama All-Star product. He takes the top off of defense. He can work corner out of his shoes. Unbelievable player, about 6'2", 160. He's got room for size. His only offers, and it's not negative. I always say anytime a kid gets an offer, regardless of where they can go, to have paid education is awesome, are to Akron and San Diego State. Now, his coach will tell you, and a lot of coaches will tell you, if the portal was not here, he likely would have had a chance taken on him at either Ole Miss or Mississippi State or somewhere. But because of the portal, guys like him and others are having to take alternate routes, go to a smaller school, or even go to a junior college. And it's the same thing for the junior colleges as well. If you go to a junior college, even here in the state of Mississippi, you better be a heck of a player now if you're going to come out and then get an opportunity to go play Division I Power 5 football.
Yeah, and and also we all know too about junior college football. I mean, you can go too heavy in it. You've got to, at the core, you got to build from high school. Look what Kirby Smart in Georgia have done. When he was asked about not having a lot of guys via the portal in the starting lineup of this Georgia team, Kirby Smart said, look, you got to invest in the guys that you've already got. We know Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He's trying to protect and hold on to the culture that he's built over there. But you've got to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and then push through and execute. That's how you survive. But the NCAA just announced the second-time transfer rule because people are abusing this thing. You've got guys like JT Daniels, the quarterback from Southern Cal, got hurt, came to Georgia, started 4 games at the end of the 2020 season, had 1,000 yards passing, but he was sacked 10 times in those 4 games. He's not real mobile. And then he's Stetson Bennett. That's the movie that hadn't been produced yet. He goes to West Virginia. Now he's transferring somewhere else. JT stands for just transferred. Look, there are a lot of guys like that out there. Mac Browne, coach at North Carolina, said before the season, there are like 4,000 players in the portal, like in purgatory, that still hadn't been picked up by anybody. That's why I say this thing will collapse. Trees don't grow to the sky, Jake.
No, they don't. And you're right. I mean, the Caleb, I've said this all the time, the Caleb Williams of the world, those guys are going to, transfer and they're going to find homes. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like that, they're going to be fine. But it's the other guys, like you said, it's the high percentage of guys that never land anywhere. And I think that's the information that a lot of these guys aren't getting told. Because a lot of these guys, get told how great they are from the time they're about 7 or 8, and they start playing flag football, and they're going to camps and they're doing this. And I get it. A lot of them, parents put a lot of money into their careers. They spent put a lot of sweat equity into it, but it's going to have to come to a point to where guys like JT Daniels, those types of guys, it's okay to have to compete for a position. You don't have to have a starting position day one, but look, you're even seeing this down on the high school level, Rob. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but it's even getting hotter. You're seeing kids not happy, parents not happy with playing time in high school football, wanting to move their kids in 9th and 10th grade because they think their kids should be getting a starting job now. It's trickling down. These young men in high school, they know these kids in college. They're friends with a lot of them. They see what's going on, and their parents, they're going right along with it. So it's a sad situation because, as you said, the only way it's going to fix itself is to fix itself, and there's a lot of ugly to that as well.
Yeah, and a few more minutes before we let you go. I know you've got a big day ahead of you, but going along with you, I really appreciate you taking time to be with us. I look at the number of parents in today's world that show up for practice at 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, tailgate down on their truck, cooler of beer with their friends. They're virtue signaling those coaches like, you better be playing, my boy. If you want that money for that new football field or that new locker room, he better be playing, or I'll put you on my plane and fly you out to our place in Beaver Creek, Colorado, and take you skiing. I mean, it's ridiculous. You've got helicopter parents. No, it's a new term. Our good friend Kevin Skarbinski, great sports writer, Birmingham Lead, Birmingham News forever. He calls them snowplow parents. Push everything out of your kid's way. And we always like to say, son, here's a shovel. Figure it out. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I like the term snowplow parent. That's kind of where it is. And, you can take that into baseball. You can take that into basketball. Yeah. It's just it covers all the sports. But you're right. I mean, we're going to get back to a point in time where kids have to figure this thing out and, working a little bit, taking a little time. We live in such a microwave society. We want it now, right? I mean, we want everything now. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen now. But this mentality is causing a strain not only on college coaches, but high school coaches as well. Hopefully we'll get to a better place in this in the coming years.
Yeah, and I even had an athletic director at a big school in Memphis tell me this. He had parents of a 7th grade basketball player come into him at the high school and say, look, we think that when our son gets here, you need to play him at the 2 guard, not the 1 or the 3, whatever. And he goes, I'm just sitting there listening to these parents. And I let them just keep talking and talking and talking, give someone enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And they got through and he said, are you through? I said, yeah. He goes, tell you what, your son's not even here yet. And when he gets here, he'll have to earn what he gets. I appreciate you coming in here and taking the time, but what do you do for a living? Well, we've got a cement business, concrete business. Why don't you go back and work on making that a better business and let me coach him if he's good enough to make our team. Okay. I'm being honest with you. But don't you come in here and tell me how to play your son. That's what's going on, folks. And as far as Caleb Williams goes, he is the antithesis of the narcissistic, spoiled brats of society. Men don't paint their fingernails. And what he put on there for the Utah game, he should not have won the Heisman Trophy. He doesn't represent what the Heisman Trophy is about. He's a journeyman, a ringer who went out there with Lincoln Riley, who doesn't believe in defense. His stats were great. He's a better pro prospect. But to me, the best player is Bryce Young in college football. The most valuable player to his team is Stetson Bennett IV. That's how I feel. Jake, look, I did not mean, again, to keep you so long, but you're really good. Enjoy this. Tell people, before we go to the break, how they can follow you. And let's do this again real soon because this has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, Rob. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it as well. We'll definitely get together sooner rather than later. I'm on Twitter at Jake Wim. You can just follow me there. It's just pretty simple, Jake Wim. Also, if you want to check out anything that we're doing down here, you can go to the zone1059.com, stream the show. I'm on 3 to 6 Monday through Friday here in the central portion of the state. We cover most of the area, most of the state of Mississippi. On the stream, you can get it anywhere. So, Rob, I appreciate it, man. That was a great to be with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to tell you about Mississippi. Per capita, not only do they have more guys in the NFL than any other state, the most generous, kindest, philanthropic people on the planet. My grandparents are from the Delta, on the Arkansas side from Helena, but I hunt down in Lambert. Great people down there, and I'm looking forward to listening to your show. I'm going to put the app on my phone. It is 105.9 Jackson, Mississippi's Jake Wimberly. Right back with more on Sidelines.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, man, that was a great segment. Jake Wimberly, programming director, does a daily afternoon sports radio show, 105.9 The Drive in Jackson, Mississippi. As my good friend William and Christy Rourke say, the bold new city, the capital of the state of Mississippi, talking SEC and college football, NIL, portal, you name it. Let's switch gears, head east on Interstate I-22, head over to Brookhaven, not Atlanta, but a native of LaGrange, Georgia. Plow them up, Grangers, plow them up. Billy Roberts. Billy, we've been talking about some stuff that just happened in the last 24 hours. The NCAA has announced that they're going to change the transfer rules. It's already starting to happen. You know, a lot of people have this defeatist attitude of there's nothing we can do, cat's out of the bag, the portal, NIL, that's just the way things are. BS. And you know what I'm talking about. Barbara Streisand on that. Billy, you're in business. You work for a big company, Oracle, out in California. You get on an airplane in Atlanta. It's a 5-hour flight. Depends on if you got the wind and the jet stream and all those variables. What are people doing when they get on a 5-hour plane flight? Are they reading Norton's Anthology of English Literature, or are they doing something else like listening to what?
Podcast. Yeah, I started doing it myself. 5 hours takes a long time to get through. The older you get, the tougher it is. But yeah, I usually download podcasts, or now that they got Wi-Fi on airplanes, you don't need to download them in advance. But that's kind of how it started. A little while.
Well, and it beats the bus ride out there to California. I mean, could you imagine taking the Hound 6 days, 293 stops? It would be horrible. But Billy, you saw what happened Monday night. You're over there in Atlanta, metro Atlanta area, 22 counties, 6.5 million people. There's a lot of talent. 250 Division I players a year coming out of the state of Georgia, the fourth most of any state in the country behind Texas, Florida, and California. It's amazing. And Georgia gets their share of players in state, but they're recruiting nationally. Is this Georgia team, in your opinion, better than the one that won the national championship last year? Did they play an easier schedule? Your takeaway?
I think that they got younger for sure. A lot of guys left to go to the NFL last year. I think on defense, and they have 5 draft picks in the early rounds last year from that championship team. So they had to rebuild. They had a lot of depth that obviously they brought up from some of the younger ranks, and they'll have to do it again. But the general consensus that a lot of my Georgia fans friends have is it's a young team overall, and so look out. They obviously Kirby will try to get them to focus on a three-peat. I don't think that's been done before, so motivational tools shouldn't be too hard for him to find. And everybody feels like, wow, this isn't necessarily over. This isn't the end of a dynasty. It's maybe the beginning, which is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, and you think about the only repeats have been quarterbacks, at least. I think Jake Taggy at Nebraska, 71-72. The late Steve Davis at Oklahoma, 74-75. Matt Leinart, Southern Cal, 03-04. A.J. McCarron, 2011-2012 at Alabama. And now Stetson Bennett, the fourth. I don't know if he's eligible to come back for another year, but man,
they're going to have the Chris Winkie rule. I think Winkie was 28 when he won the Heisman. He's gone off to play baseball. So Stetson's bumping up against that. I think he's 25 at least right now.
Yeah, and spare me he's not an NFL prospect, and that's the only reason Caleb Williams won the Heisman is because he's a better pro prospect. The best player, like I say, Bryce Young. Most valuable player and best player and just the greatest story is Stetson Bennett the fourth. I mean, Bryce has already got one Heisman. He's in good shape. But I want to switch gears now and look at what's happening in college football. 6 of the teams really are getting 55 or 60% of the top 100 players in America. We just talked with Jake Wimberly. 105.9 The Drive in Jackson, Mississippi. The junior colleges, there's 17 of them in Mississippi. The high schools, they are suffering because of the portal. And as Mac Brown said, we got over 4,000 kids that went in 3 months ago that were still in the portal that hadn't been picked up yet. Coach Matt Dean is on with us right now. Bring him on in here. But Billy, I got to ask you this. Is going into the portal now the new way for the snowflakes and the cupcakes, these soft kids? Instead of I quit or I got cut, I go into the portal, and it makes it look like, I'm going to the portal. Like, I'm a free agent. Yeah, it's because you weren't going to play where you were anyway. But I think that's what it really is. If you cut down to it and you're honest, does the dress make me look fat? You betcha.
I agree. I think that, baseball obviously established free agency in the 70s, and, it's well established at this point. But every year, and if you use that as an analog, the top 15, free agents in baseball, they sign the big money contracts and they get courted by all of the teams with high revenue, high payroll. But there's journeyman players like a second tier shortstop that's not Carlos Correa or Swanson, and he's going to end up signing with Oakland or somebody like that. The Kansas City Royals. He's not going to get signed by the Dodgers for $300 million. So that's a kind of a look into what's going to happen with college football with NIL, and the transfer portal. It is an analog of free agency, and these guys, I don't know that they have agents yet. But I think they're all trying to test the waters and see, can I go get some of that Texas A&M money, or can I go get some of that Red Elephant money? That's a little bit of a stretch because, Georgia, Alabama, they are going to get whoever they want. The elites in college football probably don't like the transfer portal and NIL because the system's working for them. They don't really need any disruptor. All they can do is be hurt by a transfer portal, hurt by NIL. The guys that are trying to get to the top and climb the slippery pole, these are new tools that they can master and learn from. Lane Kiffin, great example. He's mastered the transfer portal, remakes his roster in one season. TCU, great example. They were 5-7 last year. This year they, lose 2 games, and in the playing for the championship, they got clobbered, but that's beside the point. They had a longtime coach that quit last year midseason before he was let go. Bring in Sonny Dykes. He is understands the new rules, the new strategy, remakes his roster in one season and plays for it all. And that's interesting. And I don't really like a lot of what the implications are, particularly with like NIL money. I think that there's got to be a contractual obligation there, just like you and I are businessmen. If we accept money, we should have to stick around and fulfill what we're being paid to do. So taking $1 million in NIL money and then leaving in less than a season and going somewhere else just because you might have a better chance there, it seems like you should have to give some of that money back. So it is the Wild West. There will need to be some guardrails put up, but I think it's just the dawn of college football free agency with a different name, basically.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of along that line. Solar panels. Okay, every time the government hemorrhages with money, which is all the time, the federal government, they give these grants for solar panels, and next thing you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, you go by, these solar panel farms, that are out there on the side of the road at your city's park on the side of a hill. They've got weeds growing over them, covering them up with, poison ivy and kudzu and everything like that. Kudzu takes care of a lot of architectural nightmares in the South. Trust me, it does. But I got to say this, Matt Dean, David Schultz, WNSP down in Mobile, was on with us yesterday and does a great job. He said it's the Sextonization. You've now got guys like the Western Kentucky quarterback who say they're going into the portal, okay? And they test the waters, and maybe they don't get what they want from other schools, or the school where they're at says, okay, we'll come up with 5 times as much NIL money. Okay, I'm going to stay. That's what I think's going on. Matt Dean, Rhodes College, 32 years, athletics director, women's basketball coach, associate AD, one of the world's most interesting Iowans I've ever met. But Matt Dean, is the Sextonization of college athletes now happening? They talked about the coaches, but like we said yesterday, you don't start out making $9 million a year, probably 30,000 or 35. You work your way up the top. For an 18-year-old kid to say, well, if the coaches can do it, I can do it, is absurd. Obviously, the people who think that's okay don't have children. Matt Dean, your thoughts?
Well, a couple thoughts. I thought Bill made some great points, and from a coaching perspective, I think what we don't take into account with the portal sometimes is sometimes these coaches are glad this 4 or 5-star didn't work out into the portal because it just didn't work out for them. I mean, we hear all the stories where you're talking about a quarterback that had record numbers, let's say at a Western Kentucky, and trying to, capitalize on that for himself. That's great. But there's a ton of kids out there, Rob, that thought they were going to be a star at a really top tier program, and they see there's someone better than them, and they're really looking to go out and get some tape and try to find their path to stardom. So I've always been on your side with the portal because I think it's in many ways it's hurting the game. But I also believe if you look at Bill's example with Sonny Dykes, incredible what he did with the portal this year. You go from 5 wins to 13-2, playing for a national championship. And it's a different form of free agency, right? And, for some coaches, Lane Kiffin, another example Bill gave us, they've done really well in it. I'm a Midwesterner, Iowa fan, and my team I grew up with, the Iowa Hawkeyes, have kind of slowly tried to dabble in it, and then they're trying to figure it out. They just got Cade McNamara, the quarterback from Michigan, who 2 years ago actually started in the national championship semifinal game and led them to a Big Ten title. So I'm all for student athlete success. And if this is enhancing student athletes to have more opportunities for themselves, so be it. Here's the thing I don't like the portal. That's the tampering. It's contacting a kid before he or she has formally put themselves in an identification number in the portal system. And we know what's going on. There's handlers out there. There's family acting as, liaisons. And that's the damaging part to me. It's not what it was designed for, but I don't know how you control it.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have any accountability, you cannot accomplish the mission. And as a coach, Billy, you're talking to these kids about, look, times, you're going to have some tough times in your journey here at Georgia or LSU or Memphis, wherever you are. And you're going to want to quit. You're going to say, I can't take it anymore. You got to tie another knot or two in that rope and hang on. You got to find excuses to win. Can you imagine the kind of kids that are going into the portal? Because because things aren't going right. So like 3 days into Bud's training to be a Navy SEAL, you're going to transfer out and try to become, I think I'll go to Marine Recon School. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
I don't see you're supposed, as Eddie Robinson, one of my favorite coaches of all time, former Grambling coach, used to say, football teaches the lessons of life. You get knocked on your butt, you get back up and you fight. You get knocked down again, you keep fighting and fighting and fighting. But when you don't get back up, you are done, finished, nada, no more. Those lessons are being lost on these kids that are being coddled by mommy and daddy who are snowplow parents. They're not helping their kids. And this country, we're not talking about millions of people, but as far as student athletes go, this is a sad, sad state that people are allowing to be perpetuated because they want to be best friends with these kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's face it. There's not a kid on any one of these Division I rosters that wasn't king of his small town and the high school team he played on. So they're used to being told how awesome they are. So they've got an ego. They all do. Every guy that's playing Division I football, even if he's number 3 on the 4 deep, he thinks he's going to get to the NFL if only he, can run a little faster, get a little bigger, but they've all got an ego. They've all won big, or they wouldn't be on a roster at a major school or even a second tier, tier at school. So the challenge is, for a guy like that already thinks he's great, to have him be a little bit humble and saying, I'm going to tough it out and I'm going to try to learn from these coaches. Now, in Alabama, Georgia, there's obviously internal competition, and the guys that truly are elite are going to stick around and relish the competition. But I hate to do it, but I picked on Brian Coward a lot of times on your show. If you remember, Auburn signed him. He's from Sefner, Florida. I'm sure
high school,
single A school. He was a big, giant kid, and he practically came rolling into Auburn in a solid gold Rolls Royce. I mean, just, came in on a throne basically, and he got his ass handed to him, the level of competition wasn't what he was used to, and he had the physical tools, but he, was soft, I guess. Ultimately he left the school, but we thought he would dominate. I think he was a 5-star. I remember he was a huge.
He was the number 1 player in the country.
Yeah. And we were thrilled when we got him at Auburn. I remember it was like, oh, man, this is great. We took him from the Gators. It was a good conquest going deep into the state of Florida to get him. And he was a big marshmallow for a while and really never did pan out. So you got to assume that the level of competition that he encountered at a major D1 program was something he'd never seen before. And he wasn't, the king of a small town anymore. There was 100 kings of their small town, right? Yeah.
Well, let's say what happened when Byron Cowart landed at Auburn. Again, the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school, 6'4", 280, small school in Florida. C.C. Jefferson, another big 5-star defensive lineman. He went to Florida, but that was when Will Muschamp came to Auburn. He brought like 8 or 9 kids, like Carlton Davis, great defensive back.
He worked out
the NFL. Yeah. And what happened was you had Carl Lawson, Matt and Billy, at Auburn, who was a top 10 player in the country out of Milton High School in Alpharetta, Metro Atlanta, surprise. And then you had Montravius Adams. It's the only guy I've ever seen. Well, I've seen a lot of them like this at Auburn. 6'4", 305 pounds. I used to love it in the pregame intros on the lineup for the Auburn Football Network. They'd say, Montravius Adams, Doolittle County, Georgia, Vienna High School. He'd get on there, and he was a country boy, but he was an incredible athlete, high football IQ. And what I heard was in practice, and Matt, you know this, and Billy, there's a pecking order, the alpha male culture. From what I was told, he put Byron Cowart in his place when he was a freshman. Cowart played in 26 games at Auburn, had 12 tackles and 1.5 sacks. He transferred to Maryland and ended up getting drafted to the NFL. But you got to learn how to fight back. We're going to talk more about the future of college football, NIL, the portal, a lot going on. Billy Roberts, Matt Dean on Thursday's College Football and Basketball Blitz.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection. and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, let's switch gears now, and I want to talk about what's going on with Alabama. You know, there was David Pollock, Billy and Matt made the comment on the set, which is fine, that Georgia has pretty much owned college football these last 2 years. And everybody was saying, you know, Nick Saban sort of looked at him. Look, I mean, Nick Saban is an alpha male. He's not a beta, okay? He's not Mr. Rogers. He's Chuck Norris, okay? So he should react that way. He went out and had statistically the best recruiting class he's ever had. Matt, I think Alabama, a lot of people think next year without Bryce Young, they'll take a step back. I mean, they might. They got Ty Simpson, Jalen, you know, at quarterback, they've got some talent. They've got a ton of talent. Blue chip index, it's Bama and Georgia every year. Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Texas, or Ty Simpson. That's who's going to be the guy. But the offensive line, they've struggled for the talent they have to develop those guys. And there are going to be some changes there, but I don't see Alabama stepping away from the national championship hunt at all, as long as Nick Saban has a heartbeat, Matt.
Yeah, as long as Saban's leading that ship, they're going to be in the mix. I do think it's interesting when you're talking about winning championships. You know, the continuity that Georgia had with Stetson Bennett, I know they lost 15 kids to the league, but that makes a huge difference. So losing Bryce Young, and let's not forget Will Anderson, who probably both those guys will probably both be top 5 picks in this coming draft. It's going to be a challenge because I'll tell you what, I think LSU has got Jaden Daniels coming back, I believe, their quarterback.
Yep.
And, you know, the West, doesn't matter East or West now with what Tennessee's done recently, too. I mean, it's challenges for both Alabama and Georgia, but I just think that Georgia's primed, you know, right now. If you look at what Kirby did when he was with Coach Saban and now what he's done as a head coach, I mean, it's going to take, you know, and with Hooker leaving Tennessee, I'm guessing if he's done there, I haven't heard, you know, if he has eligibility left or not. I don't know that situation, but I mean, I think it's going to be Georgia again, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if LSU won the West again, Rob. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, Billy. I know you got to go on a call, but you agree or disagree with Matt?
No, totally. I you know, it'll be interesting. I mean, when are they going to do away with the East-West designation? Is it going to be when the new teams join the SEC, or will it remain in place one more season with an East and a West?
We're going to talk about that in hour number 2 with John Hartwell is going to join us on the AD angle, but that is a good question. I mean, we got away with it from it in basketball, and it's fine. You know,
it seems like now's the time, you know, and you know, the SEC championship game is something we all love, but the relevancy of that in the era of a 12-team playoff, you know, it makes you wonder, right? I mean, is it necessary? Is it, you know, redundant? Are guys going to get hurt and beat up that otherwise, you know, need to be ready for, or is it a great game to toughen you up for the 12-team playoff schedule? I mean, I like it. I'd love them to continue doing it, but it makes you wonder, you know, if it's relevant still. Because in basketball, the SEC tournament doesn't really matter that much. I mean, I guess if a team that did not win the regular season in SEC basketball wins a tournament, and Auburn's done that a time or two. They do sometimes get an NCAA bid for the March Madness, but it doesn't seem to be the do or die scenario that the SEC football championship has been with that game. So, it'd be interesting to see what becomes of the SEC championship game. I'd like to see it continue, but it makes you wonder. But there's so much money there; they're not gonna say, "Yeah, we don't need this anymore." That's not likely to happen.
No, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, from athletic director standpoint, and looking at big picture, the divisions East versus West. Jake Wimberly was on out of Jackson, Mississippi, 105.9 the afternoon drive. And he said that top to bottom, because of Vanderbilt winning 5 games, he goes, I'd have to say they were a little bit stronger than the SEC West this year. I know Billy's got to jump on a call. Billy Roberts, thanks so much, over in Brookhaven, not Atlanta, right next to Atlanta, for joining us. But your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think obviously the emergence of Tennessee makes that a viable argument. But Rob, also to kind of balance the equation out on the other side, Kentucky didn't have the season they thought they were going to have either, right? So, that was one where we thought Kentucky would. Now, if you look at the game, they played Georgia 16-6 game, I believe, late in the season. So they were competitive, at least from a defensive standpoint, against the Bulldogs. But I'm curious to see what Napier can do with Florida. We know Stoops has done some good things with Kentucky. Josh Heupel's done a great job with Tennessee. But Brian Kelly getting to the SEC championship game year one, having the guts to go for 2 against Alabama in overtime after that first touchdown in overtime. Brian Kelly, whether you like him or not, can coach football and is a leader of men. And that's someone, everyone thought that initially Jimbo may be a challenge consistently to Nick in the West, but last year was a tough year for the Aggies, and I think right now, looking at it, another big blow. I think Mississippi State losing Coach Leach, rest his soul. We'll see how they move forward with a new coaching staff as well. And Ole Miss started off so hot, Rob, and quite frankly, we kind of thought their schedule was front loaded with the wins, and we were proved correctly. And the only thing I was disappointed with Ole Miss this year was a little bit their performance in the bowl game.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought in the bowl game, they, and I know it's Texas Tech. I know it's probably not the bowl game they desired, but it didn't seem like they truly were all in that game.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, like, as Jake Wimberly said, the health of Ole Miss and Mississippi State programs is really good. Financially, Ole Miss picked up, and John Hartwell, who was joining us now on the AD angle here on Thursday, we talked about this week. He was there 2003 through 2012, that 10-year period as deputy AD at Ole Miss, and the money that Ole Miss gained in the 3-week courtship of Lane Kiffin, Auburn, and Kiffin to Auburn, whatever it was. They gained 5,100 new members to the Ole Miss, the Grove Collective, for NIL, and $10.8 million. But there was a cost to that. And John Hartwell, as an AD, and we talked about our mythical booster, at the famous accounting firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. That was tough. And if you're the AD at Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin, and you can't ignore, you can't put your head in the sand. This isn't you're not the president. You can't do that. So you're aware of stuff going on. You're going, we got to keep this guy, but I know what he's doing because Jimmy Sexton's his agent, and Jimmy Sexton's doing what he's paid to do. Where do you draw the line on what you're going to allow before you say, look, this is what we're going to pay you? If it's not acceptable, you got to go. Go for it. John Hartwell.
Yeah, and where institutions back themselves in a corner is having these huge buyouts, that quite frankly, I don't care what their financial health is. If you've got to pay a $50, $60, $70 million buyout, that's a chunk of change that, changes the narrative in a lot of ways when maybe you've had multiple subpar seasons and reason and logic tells you need to make a change. Your pocketbook tells you can't make a change. And that's where you see schools get in a bind. But again, when you talk about market value, whether it's in the stock market, in coaches' salaries, in NIL deals, whatever that may be, you somewhat have to play the balancing game of keeping up with the Joneses, i.e. Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Oregon. But you've got to ultimately, as an athletic director or a president of an institution, you have a fiduciary responsibility to be sound financially. And a lot of times coaches don't want to hear this, but hey, you've got to treat that money like it was your own checkbook. And
yes,
you just don't go, Rob, people coming to you to make financial investments. They're not just, taking the back of the Wall Street Journal and going eeny, meeny, miny, mo, closing their eyes and saying, I want this stock. You're going to do your homework on it. And that's where today's world and today's market in terms of high profile coaches has gone askew, because there have been contracts done that are not sound business decisions.
Yeah, that nobody with a sound mind would ever do in the business world. And you listen and you watch what's happening. Again, trees don't grow to the sky. That's why the tree cutting services will come out to your property and say, we need access to your backyard to cut those pine trees before they fall on the power lines. Well, that's what we mean. The coaching salaries will go to a point and then they're going to just fall. That's what's going to happen. It's called the free market. It's what people are willing to pay for a piece of property. It goes to a point, then it goes the other way. And in the stock market, we have corrections about, every 10 months, we have 5 to 10%. Every 10 to 24 months, we have, 10 to 18, 20% correction in the market. Every 24 to 30 months, we have a big correction in the market. But guess what? Historically, on average, within 18 months of a major correction, 25% or so on the stock market, historically, within 18 months, the market recovers back 33%. Warren Buffett's right. When the market pulls back, you find out who's been swimming naked. Y'all get what that means. And that can make you sick. And if you think of some people swimming naked, but Mildred perhaps, but it exposes, and that's what I think is going. John and Matt, both of y'all, and Matt, you'll say, well, I'm at Rhodes, the numbers are different. It doesn't. Just put it in perspective. It's three things that you have to be successful in life, in the military, in a business, and that is responsibility. What are you doing? Authority. Well, that gives you, the ability to make a change. Yes, we're doing this. No. The third one is accountability. Without accountability, you can't stay on track. So as much as it's woe is me, it's the wild, wild west, that's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. Hey, if you want to be a defeatist and give up like that, so be it. But college athletics, remember, in 1906, 19 football players died playing football. The governor and the state legislature in Georgia convened a special session after a Georgia football player had died playing football. It was so rough. The mother of that player spoke on the floor of the Georgia State House in Atlanta and said, my son would not have wanted us to stop playing college football. He would want us to keep fighting on. So what'd they do? They found ways to make it safer. And we'll figure out the same thing. But I want Matt, jump in with your business mind, both of y'all. Who owns college football? The fans. What if the fans start going into the portal? What if the fans, Matt Dean, say, okay, no more NIL? What if fans across a big boycott started? Don't think that's not being talked about.
Well, the beauty of this show for me on Thursdays, guys, I get a chance to learn something every day. And John had said this a couple shows ago, but treating your own budget like treating your fiscal year institutional budget like it's your own money. I mean, that's something I wish I'd have had in my vernacular a couple years ago with some of my coaches when they come at me in these one-on-one meetings about the next operational budget situation. But the reality is it's no different than I'm a season ticket holder of the Tennessee Titans, right? Had to buy a PSL. Well, if I'm a season ticket holder at any institution, and I get I'm displeased with our coach, how we handled a certain situation, I can stop buying my season tickets. I don't have to renew, right? And I think at some point, when we see less people in the stadium, you're going to see some of that shit you're talking about, Rob, and bringing things back to the middle. But the problem is, I don't see that happening in the SEC at most venues for a while. I mean, the ratings we are getting in college football numbers, the ratings we are getting in the NFL. I told someone the other day, they said, why do you think the NFL matters so much? I go, well, I'll give you a couple reasons. I believe a lot of women watch the NFL because they're really engaged in fantasy football. They'll watch a Jacksonville-Cleveland game on a Thursday night because they got Nick Chubb on their roster. I mean,
Petertown, Georgia.
I'm just telling you, it's amazing what's going on with football right now. As a longtime basketball coach, I thought there was nothing greater than March Madness, and I still believe that. But I got to tell you, the semifinal game of Georgia-Ohio State, what a football game. Whether you believe it was a pretty game or not, TCU and Michigan went down to the wire as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I just think it's market-driven. When the fans decide they've had enough, they'll stop coming to the games, and then people will have to make different financial decisions.
All right, I'll tell you what I think. I'm going to predict you this one, John Hartwell. NFL fantasy football, you're right. It makes you follow it because you've got skin in the game, okay? A bunch of fifth graders on CNBC saying they beat the so-called pros on Wall Street at picking stocks doesn't mean anything. You know why? Because they're not using real money. And I can tell you from dealing with real people with real money, emotions get involved. How about we start doing this? Start listing the NIL deals of different student athletes at their respective universities and start looking at them like stocks, okay? Personally, I like a stock with a low beta. I like one that pays a nice dividend because even in a crappy market, if I'm reinvesting dividends and capital gains, I'm making money. I'm in the only business as a financial advisor, in addition to doing this show, that if we lower our prices 30 or 40%, a lot of people don't want to take our calls. Right. If we lower the prices at the mall 30 or 40% or more, our wives are going to sleep in their cars to be the first one in line at 6 a.m. when the store opens to get the best deals. And I pity those people that you see on those commercials for Deal Dash. I saved $100 when I bought this. Yeah, you didn't sleep for 3 days, you old windbag, and you saved a little bit of money, and you had, your husband left you because you didn't cook for him. I don't know what happened, but I saved $100 on Deal Dash. Good God, what did it cost you to get that thing? But guys, we're going to talk about it when we get right back. A question. What is NIL doing to regular fundraising efforts at universities across the country? Whether it's Tide Pride, the Loyalty Foundation at Ole Miss. We're going to talk more right now after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House Equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, Rob Browne back here. John Hartwell, Matt Dean, the AD angle on Thursday. John Hartwell, you name the school again. These NIL collectives they're popping up everywhere. They're like, mushrooms in a field popping up. And you know what happens with those things? People go out there and boil those mushrooms and they make tea out of it. Makes you see a lot of crazy stuff. But what is happening to Tigers Unlimited, Tide Pride, the Bull Gators, the Gridiron Society of Georgia, whatever it is, having to compete? We need X number of dollars for facilities and infrastructure at whatever university we're talking about. So there's only so many J.R. Ewings and Foghorn Leghorns out there to just write these big checks. And when they write those checks, they don't come without a lot of strings attached. They want to know, what's my ROI? So how is that? What are you hearing from your friends and colleagues in athletics departments and administrative departments around the country? Is there a battle, a war going on? Because you've always had the academic fundraising of a school, the athletics. Now you got NIL. That's why I'm saying this stuff is going to fall apart.
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge, and it's interesting, the transition of the mindset and the behavior of some of the athletic directors out there. Because really, when NIL first launched, which is now, almost 19 months ago, July 1 of 2021, everybody was a little cautious. It was brand new. From an athletic director perspective, and actually, from the university perspective as a whole, people knew it was coming, but the NCAA had not done a very good job of kind of laying out the parameters of it, which really they still haven't. It's the wild, wild west. You hate to use a cliche like that, but it really is. But, literally every day, I've seen 2 or 3 in the last week or two, you've got athletic directors coming out and endorsing, or endorsing and encouraging their donor base to give to these collectives, which yes, back to your question before the break, it is having an impact on donor giving directly to the university. And here's where it's going to become a real challenge. While some of these collectives got launched early and people tried to say, oh, these are a charity or these are a 501c3 and they're tax deductible, very quickly and rightfully so, the IRS has blown that up and said, hey, this is advertising, or this is not a tax deductible gift to an individual. Whereas any, the gifts to an institution are, for bricks and mortar, whatever, scholarship, endowments, whatever they may be, those are deductible to the individual. So not only do you have, another source here or another option for people to give, this is one that does not have as many tax benefits. Now, are people doing it? Yes. Are, people at the major institutions, the deep pocket ones, if you will, are you going to see an immediate impact of that? No, they're going to give because it has been sold on the basis, hey, you give and we're going to win. I mean, that's the bottom line of how people are selling this. You give, we'll get the best talent or some of the best talent, and we are going to win. If that doesn't happen, just like donors have for many, many years, where they, part of their contribution have gone to or has gone to fund coaches' salaries, and they feel like they have a vested interest there. And back to your Foghorn Leghorn, that they can weigh in and dictate some things that are going on. This makes it even more scary because they're going to feel like they have directly contributed to Johnny or to Jane, student athlete, and by God, I want them to perform. And if they're not performing, I'm not going to be happy. And God forbid, not only if they're not performing, but if they jump ship and go to another institution, all hell is going to break loose. And I think that is a scenario that I'm really worried about, over the next 5 years in collegiate athletics.
Well, I'll say this, just like in the business world, you hire an employee, you pay him a big salary. He shows up late or he doesn't show up at all. I can tell you this, being in the commission business, Memphis could get a foot of snow, ice, you name it. Locust plague, the parking lot, when I was working at, whether it was Morgan Keegan, Duncan Williams, whatever, First Bank, it's full of all my guys and our team. In fact, 2 or 3 days in advance of that weather coming, they made sure that all of us guys with the 4-wheel drive trucks and SUVs were picking up the support staff and everybody to make sure they got there. Okay. You can always be productive, but in the real world, just like in NIL, they're going to find out if I'm investing in you and you are not producing. To me, 5 o'clock in the morning, you really need to be there at about 4:30. Okay. I know that. And you know that, John. What time did those friendly people at the Citadel, when you were a knob, come knocking on your door? Did they knock on the door at 5 and say, "Good morning, John. We're going to get together and we're going to maybe do a little run and
get up at your leisure. We'll serve cinnamon rolls and bonbons and would you like coffee or tea today, Mr. Hartwell?" No, that didn't happen. I still have nightmares at times from hearing revelry, going off in the morning. And I'm an early riser anyway. In fact, this morning I got up about 4:45. My father-in-law was going duck hunting, so I knew I still have that. But that's not the way the real world operates.
That's right. And Matt, it. Again, it's so cool to go from, Matt, D1, D2, D3, it's all competition. But Matt, you know that your people that you're coaching and the words that you use, they're going to have an impact on them. They're going to be in their 5th year of medical school as a resident. You got to do undergrad medical school. Then you got to do 5 years of a residency. And you're going, golly, I'm making $45,000 a year. I thought doctors got paid a lot of money. Well, they're going to push you these 36-hour rotations, but you're going to remember in practice, those coaches that said, if you quit out here because this is too tough, you're going to quit everything tough the rest of your life. That's what we better be careful. But I like with what John said, and in the business world, Matt, you've got 2 sons. They're in, coaching and in financial services. You're in business. You've got to produce. People will not pay you a big salary indefinitely if they're not getting an ROI, will they?
No question. And I want to add to John's point, another coach's angle on this. I think what we lose sometimes is how coaches are struggling with managing a locker room with NIL. I think there are a lot of examples where a kid may have been told one thing on the front end, even though we know it's not supposed to be an inducement, right? You go there, you get your own deal, right? But we know that's not going on. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of kids in the portal, Rob. They thought they were getting X. They're getting X minus Y.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you got that stud in there that's got the deal, how is he taking care of teammates that are maybe not so fortunate? Right.
Yeah.
And I promise you, I don't know. I've never heard of anything that Stetson Bennett had in NIL, but he just seems like the guy that he's going to take care of those offensive linemen. And I don't know that. I got no evidence to prove that, but you see a lot of coaches and a lot of ADs getting out of this industry earlier than they had anticipated because this is not manageable. And John made a good point too. This is only 19 months, John. So these kids that are juniors and seniors, They never had NIL. So you're seeing kids coming back maybe an extra year instead of going to the league because, hey, maybe I did well and I gained something. It's so difficult to gauge these guys. We've never had this, and it's a struggle bus.
So Rob, I will add. I know I rained on some people's parade a little bit ago when I was talking about the negative impacts. I will say something very good coming out of the Division I Council yesterday is looks like they're going to put some parameters on the second transfer. So Johnny goes from institution number 1 to institution number 2. That can be done. That's a pretty easy process. But for Johnny to go from institution 2 to institution 3, they're proposed, again, this still has to be finalized, but proposed that there's a pretty narrow set of criteria that are going to be put in place that allow for a waiver for that to happen. So I think that's very positive. I applaud the D1 Council. And again, I think if they're allowed to do what they've been tasked to do, that council is made up of practitioners, of athletic directors, associate ADs, some coaches input there. I think that's very positive that it's not going to be an unregulated free agency out there.
Yeah. And again, I'm not for lots of rules and regulation and all. And I think that's good. I did see that news from the NCAA. All right. And again, you can put on your Howard Sprague CPA hat, and you talked about the tax deductions, what's deductible, what is not. In February of 2017, the Tax Reform and Reconciliation Act came about. The money that you spend on a luxury suite in Tuscaloosa or Gainesville or Baton Rouge or Knoxville, Memphis, Fayetteville, Oxford, it doesn't matter where it is. We'll even say Columbus, Ohio. What is deductible and what is not changed in athletics. John, if you would expand on that real quick, and then we're going to get into some college basketball because it is hardwood time and we love it as much as we love anything.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned with the Tax Act, the dollars associated with contribution to upgrade your seats, the PSL, like Matt was talking about that he has with the Tennessee Titans. There's only a percentage of that is deductible. You can't take the whole thing as a deductible expense as an individual. Now, I'll say this, and again, I'm not going to give tax advice here on this show. I would say consult your personal CPA and tax advisor, but there are people that from a business perspective purchase those through their business. They say this is totally a business expense, and write them off on their business return, not on their individual income tax return. I'm just giving that as as an angle. That is not official tax advice. So don't come back and say, hey, John Hartwell said on Sidelines that I could do this, Mr. IRS agent.
Yeah. Well, we always want to consult also that mythical CPA out there in the hinterlands, Mr. Fred Penrod, CPA. I don't get accountants and engineers are not boring people. We just get excited about boring things. Well, say what you want. They matter. And the tax issues, don't let the tax tail wag the dog. But people typically that are wealthy, they give because they want to get something in return, a tax advantage when you have ridiculous amounts of money and you can spend it however you want to. It's a free country. You don't have to do it, but I'm glad you said that. Like you say, you put it out there. You need to consult with your personal tax preparer and do that. Now, let's look at basketball, guys. Matt Dean, Big Blue Nation up there at Kentucky. Okay, if you look at basketball attendance, Matt, the FedEx Forum, the Memphis Tigers, and Penny Hardaway. He's in his 4th year. Is he starting to settle in over there? And then the Grizzlies and Memphis seem to work together very well. And I think that's a positive. And Penny had to learn that thick book called the NCAA rule book.
Well, I think Penny also benefited from the IARP and kind of the leniency across the board the last 6 months on some of the rulings.
Yeah.
Because let's just say there was probably some other things that could have went a different direction. But it's interesting. I mean, as good as they've been, and let's just be honest and fair. Penny's kids play really hard. They're tough. He's had some really good recruiting classes there, but he's had some kids leave too. I mean, I look at Boogie Ellis having success at Southern California. He's had the one and dones with Jalen Duran and James Wiseman. Totally different set of circumstances. I get it. But last night, they lost the game at Central Florida, guys. They never should have lost. I mean, they were up 10 late in the game. They lose in double overtime. I think it was 107-105. I was watching the game, and it was just really, I mean, Kendrick Davis is special. The transfer from SMU is special. I know he's a little undersized. I think he'll play in the league. DeAndre Williams, maybe the oldest power forward in the history of college basketball. But, I think Penny made a wise move in bringing Larry in last year. I know Larry's had some health concerns and is not there this year. I'm talking about Larry Browne.
Yeah.
But Penny's teams defensively always impress me. It's just, from an elite all-pro point guard, I'm always curious why the doggone offense doesn't flow sometimes. But, John, you're a Division I basketball player. You can tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there's no question that Penny Hardaway is an elite recruiter. Obviously, being able to recruit to an NBA facility has huge advantages. But I also think, you talk about UCF winning that game last night, and I saw just a snippet of it. I mean, there's a lot of parity in college basketball right now, which I think is good for the game. Yesterday, Rob, when I was on briefly with you and Dudley Dawson was on, I'd be interested to hear his comments after what took place in Fayetteville last night, because, and I'll say this, Nate Oates, and I'll be the first to admit this. When he got hired at Alabama, I'm like, man, that's an out of the box hire. Is it going to work? Clearly it is working. He's got talent. He coaches those guys up. They play hard. Everything they do, though, starts at the defensive end. If you look at the way they
John, hold those thoughts because you're right. Playing defense in college, if you'll do it, you can be an elite team in a hurry. We'll talk more right after this quick break.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
John Hartwell, you're talking about defense, Alabama, Nate Oates. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, again, they went to Bud Walton Arena last night, and they absolutely dominated, the Razorbacks, and I was a little surprised at that. I thought it was going to be a heck of a basketball game, but they played so hard that they get easy buckets, but a lot of those easy buckets are off of steals and off of getting the ball out in transition, off of defensive rebounds. And I think, we talked yesterday with Coach John Brady. Alabama and Tennessee, have kind of distanced themselves in the SEC. But I tell you, another team, speaking of defense, is Houston, who's ranked number 1 right now. And Kelvin Sampson has got those guys playing unbelievable defense. I know a couple of the guys down there on that staff. I went to a couple of their practices. I actually went to a practice, an off-season workout they had last spring, and they are talented. And don't be surprised. I know it's a little early for Final Four predictions, but they are the host institution this year. The Final Four is in Houston. Don't be surprised to see the hometown Cougars there.
Matt Dean, college basketball. I mean, it's all we got now till spring practice starts about mid-February in the SEC. But I love college basketball. The regular season matters. It has everything to do with how you're going to play, or well or poorly. If you can't shoot free throws, it's hard to suddenly start shooting free throws when you get into the tournament. But your takeaway from John's comments and this SEC basketball race and college basketball in particular.
Well, John, I was watching that Alabama-Arkansas game before I switched over to Memphis when I found out the Tigers were in overtime, and I agree with your assessment. I mean, I thought every time Arkansas would chop it maybe to 6 or 8, and you thought the crowd were getting them over the hump, Alabama would get a big stop or get a basket, and they just extended that thing. And you're right, John. Nate Oates has been outstanding. I've watched Tennessee several times, and the thing that's great about Tennessee is they have that defensive model. And I heard this from someone, and I kind of believe this. Tennessee's the type of team, they're so good defensively they can get to the Final Four, but sometimes they're so limited offensively they could get eliminated in the first weekend. I mean, it's crazy, but they have a wide variance, I think. But Houston, I would put my ticket with you on Houston. Kelvin Sampson, you talk about a guy back in '94 when Arkansas won the national championship. I was a young assistant coach on the men's side. They practiced at our facility because they were playing a regional in Memphis. I got a chance to watch Nolan, and it was just, the 40 minutes of hell is true, but Nolan's in the middle of that 40 minutes of heck, and he's just barking at every possession. And Kelvin, he gets so much out of his kids. There was an interview last night at halftime. He was only up 1 point. He was just downright mad, and he gets everything out of those kids. And I'll tell you another team that it intrigues me, and I know the Big Ten always lets us down in NCAA tournament play, it seems like. But, does anyone get more out of this talent than Matt Painter? I know we don't talk about Purdue very much, but I know I think Zach Edney's, 7'4", it seems like. I'm not sure, John, but they always surround them with shooters. You have to defend the arc against Purdue. They're going to guard you every possession. That's a team I just want to mention that we won't talk about that is playing at a high level right now in the Big Ten, because you hear all about, the favorites. And but right now, I'm kind of with John. I mean, you look at Alabama and Tennessee, and I got to tell you something, guys. Kentucky losing at home to a South Carolina team that lost to Tennessee by 40. Big Blue Nation is not very happy right now. Not very happy at all. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's a question, John. For y'all, Kentucky basketball, John Calipari's got that lifetime contract. Similar to situation at A&M. And yesterday I was, barked at about trying to compare. I'm not in any way trying to compare, because A&M's accomplishments pale in comparison to what Kentucky basketball, with their 7 national championships and 40-something SEC titles and tournament titles. We know all that. But they are struggling. Again, SEC basketball, every school is pumping resources that they previously had not been pumping in to basketball. Facilities upgrades, coaching staffs, hires. Everybody is emphasizing basketball now. In Kentucky, there have been periods where that played in a barn. Played in a barn when they were basketball, and they were okay. They were good until it burned down September 17th, 1996 at the Auburn LSU game, which Auburn lost 19-15. Night the barn burned. I was there. Some LSU left some hot dogs on the grill, I think, and torched it. But coming out, nobody left their stadium as the flames came over us. The heat. That's all matters everywhere. John Hartwell, Kentucky's got everything in the world going for them, but you're starting to see their fan base just really get angry. They're not apathetic at all. But when they don't show up to the games or they come in late, that's a trend. That's the canary in the coal mine. How much longer? Because the one and done guys, me, you better get some guys that care about winning and losing versus counting their money.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and you make reference to the game the other night against South Carolina, and when the fans did show up, I saw the one poster that said, "Please go to Texas" or something like that for Cal. So it's going to be interesting to see how that situation plays out over the next 2 months. Because not to be lost on this, back about 3 or 4 months ago, when Mitch Barnhart, the AD at Kentucky, who was one of the most respected guys in our profession, when he made some comments about, doing some football upgrades, Coach Cal came out publicly and went at him in the media. And I'm like, hey, that's I don't care who you are, going at your boss in the media is not real smart. I don't know that those two guys are exchanging Christmas cards. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out here over the next couple of months. But again, as we go back to our previous conversation, as it related to football coaches, you've got a huge buyout there. How is that going to be mitigated from Kentucky's standpoint? And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you talk about the challenges in Lexington. Look right down the road in Louisville. I mean, they are two and a whole bunch. I don't know what it is, 13, 14, 15, something like that. And their wins came over FAMU, which was a pretty close game. And then like 3 days later, they beat Western Kentucky. But they have got, I think they lost 4 games that were guarantee games that they were paying schools to come in there to the tune. I saw something about $450,000 or $480,000 that they paid out to schools to come in there and beat them. So the Bluegrass State, long known for not only horse racing but hoops, the hoops end of it is in some trouble right now.
Well, you think about it, though. When states like, look at the ACC as an example. Them not being able to come down into the deep South and cherry pick the players they want has hurt that league. But that being said, they still had 3 of the Elite 8 teams last year. Jim Larinaga, who's been coaching for 70 years at Miami, whipped Auburn by 20 points in the NCAA tournament with a 4-guard lineup. Coach K, he's gone. Roy Williams, he's gone. Hubert Davis last year gets them, to the Final Four in his first year. But when the SEC, which is so powerful and is such passionate fans and with deep pockets, decides they want to be great at something, they'll suck up all the oxygen in the room, guys. And I'm not saying that it's the dominant league in college basketball, but at some point, Rick Barnes up at Tennessee, who people will tell you is one of the nicest guys, Mark Ham, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate reporter, who's on the show with us a lot, sees him every morning walking through the neighborhood. He's approachable. He's from Hickory, North Carolina. Tennessee's building something special up there. I mean, really special. Alabama with Nate Oates building something special. And they play in an old airport hangar there, Coleman Coliseum. Some point, they're going to build a new basketball facility. I don't know when, but it's going to be hard if you're Kentucky if you don't get I mean, circle the wagons and start fighting back because, look around the SEC. Matt Dean, name me a school that's not committed to winning in basketball. Well, other than Georgia, but with, Mike White there, they look better. Matt? Okay. I think Matt's frozen in time there. John, Matt, name me a school other than Georgia prior to Mike White. Now, I think they're serious with Mike White, but they're playing at the Stegman Mausoleum in Athens. But they're better. They've won 11 or 12 games. And then I see the Undertaker, Tom Crean, on the ESPN set last night. He couldn't tell, the difference between Come Here and Sikkim coaching at Georgia. Mike White is winning. Matt?
I think Matt froze again. Yeah, Mike White, obviously played at Ole Miss, was an assistant at Ole Miss, had success just down the road from me here in Ruston, Louisiana at La Tech, and had some success at Florida too. But Mike is a really good coach. Matt was talking earlier about Matt Painter up at Purdue, and I totally agree with him. Matt Painter is one of those guys, just kind of a blue collar type of coach, gets the most out of his players, but he's one of the most well respected coaches amongst his peers in the business, as is Mike White. But yeah, when you're playing in Stegman Coliseum, at some point they've got to make a commitment to that. And here's the thing about Georgia basketball that's hard to understand, and even Georgia Tech in the last few years, that they are many years removed from Dennis Scott and Bobby Crimmins and 3D and all the talented players there. But you look at the number of high school basketball players that come out of the inside the 285 perimeter and even outside now a little bit. Atlanta, Georgia, is a hotbed for college basketball prospects. Look at rosters all over the country. They have Atlanta kids. And why in their own backyard that Georgia and Georgia Tech in recent years have not been more successful is a mystery to me. But part of it does have to do with facilities. Yeah, and Georgia – Georgia has money to do things. Football is just it's so big, and I don't know. Georgia's locked in by the by the river, by the Ocoee River, and the railroad track, the campus. It's a long sliver there, but they could build a new arena. They could do what they need to do, but I think the kids have got to know that you're committed to winning. Auburn makes a living out of there. Hell, Jabari Smith was from what? Fairburn, Georgia, Creekside High School. That's outside 285. Of course, Atlanta's now, it used to be 5 counties. They call Atlanta now Greater Atlanta, 22 counties, 6.5 million people. But guys, I think we're getting somewhere. We're getting a lot of places talking about this college basketball. But Matt, I like what you said about Purdue. Every year I just can't get that image when they write and they build and erect the Mount Rushmore of great comb-overs in the history of college basketball coaches. Gene Cady is at the top of the list. But God, Purdue is dominating Indiana now. Indiana basketball is, yesterday's news. Man, I don't know. Like you say, the Big Ten, they get into the tournament, they can get 9 or 10 teams in there, and they don't do anything. It's hard to put a finger on it. We just got a couple of minutes, but let me say this real quick. Give with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. And most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And cure the virus, people. Do the Superman pose. Look in the mirror every day for 2 minutes and say, I got this. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We got great folks like Matt Dean, John Hartwell, talking college athletics, college basketball right now. Matt, close out with your comments on Big Ten, why they can't seem to
do as well in the tournament as they do in the regular season?
Well, I'm not going to make excuses for them, but I will tell you, it's always been a physical league. They beat each other up.
Yeah.
Now that we've gone to a 4-day model for, post-conference tournaments too, I think that hurts certain teams more than others. I will say this. I'm going to piggyback back to a comment on Georgia. I know Josh Brooks personally. He was in our league at Millsaps before he went back to take the Georgia job. I think he made a terrific hire, Mike White. I think Georgia basketball will be here maybe 3 years from now on the AD Angle, wearing our AD Angle T-shirts, and we're going to see Mike White in the conversation for Coach of the Year in the SEC and probably second weekend in the NCAA tournament.
Where did he play his college basketball, gentlemen?
Was that
Ole Miss Rebel?
That's right.
Darn right. Ole Miss Rebels. Hey, John Hartwell, quick question. And Matt, you've been to the Grove. Matt, you lived there 10 years. When you weren't eating at the Beacon or Proud Larry's or, up on the square, are they going to build a statue one day of Warner Alford with a red blazer, white Oxford cloth button down from Hendon's up on the square since 1839 with a red tie, khakis and white bucks out there in the Grove going, "Welcome to Mississippi." I mean, think about the Loyalty Foundation, all the stuff that they've done there. And I don't know, just I think about that Ole Miss and Keith Carter. Keith Carter. He played there basketball at Ole Miss. It's amazing to me when you get the right people in leadership positions, what you can do. People matter, and you better know and let the people around you know that they matter. And don't let other people live in your head. Great coaches can communicate, and we love communicating with you every day. We are out of here. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great one, everybody.